Like one of my companies, they have like a model.
Okay, let's look at the first example. And I'm going to show you a second way that we can write a proof. We've been doing flowcharts, obviously, quite a bit. And flowcharts are a nice way to organize things, but it's not the only way that we can write a proof. Another way that's kind of a tried and true method is what's referred to as a two-column proof. And in fact, way back when I was in high school and took geometry, this was the pretty traditional way of doing it. This is the way that we usually set up our proofs. But a two-column proof is exactly that. We're going to set up two different columns. We're going to have one column for our statements. And we're going to have a second column for our reasons. And so we're going to still organize things in the sense of when we make a statement, we have to have a reason to back it up. But now instead of making that in a flow chart, we're going to have it organized in these two columns. Well, let's look at our information that was given. And again, get into the practice of marking the pictures. So they talked about AR and ER being the same. They talked about AC and EC being the same. And eventually we wanted to show that those two angles were the same. Well, we couldn't get there without labeling one other piece of information. What was the other piece we had to label there? Yeah, the reflexive side. And so we kind of have this goal here of showing the two triangles are congruent, in this case by side, 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 and then eventually we can say the two angles are congruent. But how do we write that in a two-column proof? Well, we're kind of going to start out the same way. We're going to start with our given information. So I'm going to take one of these pieces, the first one being AR is congruent to ER. And I'm going to make that statement. What was your reason for that statement? It was given to us. So for the reasons, I'm going to put just that, but it was given. Now notice we're going to number them so we know which one's paired up with which. Then probably the next thing would be this fact that AC and EC are the same. And that's by the same reason. All right, then the next piece of information you marked was the fact that that center line, RC, was reflexive. Let me make that statement. And from those three statements, we were able to make the conclusion that we had congruent triangles. And in this case, maybe you'd say triangle, maybe I go CER. And if I went CER, that's going to correspond with CAR. What's our reason?
Side, side, side.
Side, side, side. And once we knew the triangles were congruent, we could finally make our conclusion that we wanted to prove, and that was that angle E is congruent to angle A. And that was because congruent triangles imply congruent parts. And that would be a two-column proof for that situation. Can you see some advantages, two-column versus flowchart?
I'd say for me, what like gets me mixed up is like all the bubbles and stuff, like getting like trying to figure out which one point split, so that helps me a little bit. I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay, so if you're getting a little bit confused on the bubbles, like which one leads to which and so on, this may
I like
do
it
it this way.
more.
What?
Because the bubbles sometimes they like the right like given when they're stuff like that. So
Okay.
have the same like nowhere.
So maybe organize a little bit better for you? Okay. All right, other advantages you can maybe see to two column proofs? It's that thing with much space, right? This problem was a half a page on there versus here we could basically get it in 6 lines. Okay, so it's condensing things. Disadvantages? Things that maybe a flow chart shows a little bit better than what a two column does. No?
I don't think it organizes the process very well. I like being able to like work through it step by step, and that's just how like everything is two categories.
Okay, so it has all the information we needed, but maybe it doesn't really. If I start reading it, well, maybe I don't know how I got to here, like exactly what gave me that. Versus with a flow chart, you got a nice neat arrow that says, okay, I knew this, it told me this, sort of thing. Anybody else see a disadvantage? I mean, to me, that's probably the biggest disadvantage is it doesn't necessarily show our reasoning as well. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad option when we do our proofs. So since it's new, I want to kind of practice that. So what I would like you to do, and we're going to kind of split up the work here, but I'm going to have these 2 rows here. I want you to take number 2, and I want you to rewrite number 2 as a 2 column proof. Middle 2 rows, I want you to take number 3 and do the same thing. Rewrite it as a 2 column proof. These 2, you're going to do number 4. You're going to rewrite that as a 2 column proof. Okay, if you have room on the paper, you can do that. If not, you can put it on a separate sheet of paper. But we'll look at some selected examples once you have those rewritten. So you're going to take what you've already put into the flow chart and rewrite it as a 2 column.